and gentlemen, boys and girls, dinner time is here. That's right, we're talking about Season 3, Episode 8 of Hannibal on Dish by Dish. Greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from the Baltimore Institute for the Criminally Insane. This is the Dish by Dish podcast. We're an extension of Kill by Kill. We do this on our off weeks because we wanted to watch Hannibal again. It seemed like a good idea at the time, and it continues to be that. My name is Patrick Hamilton, and of course, there's only one person I trust. That if they really want to get a good look at themselves, they'll take out my eyes and replace them with mirrors. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Hang on.
Oh, lift. Oh, it's a lot of effort. Okay.
Sorry, I'm doing my calisthenics. Hang on.
How hot is your attic, and are you sweating profusely?
I'm very, very sweaty right now. Hold on. Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We reached a new phase of Hannibal. Now we're past the reinterpretation of the book Hannibal. Now we're reinterpreting the book Red Dragon, which I think is the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, the first direct adaptation, because like the Hannibal section is recontextualized in a whole bunch of different things. It's no straight Hannibal, the book interpretation by any stretch. But Red Dragon, at least for this first episode, there are just whole sections lifted out of the book and slapped on screen. Yeah,
they're only the primary changes in it are the role. Well, I don't think Chilton is actually in, or is he? Is he in the original book?
I don't know that he's an active participant. He may be talked about, but I don't necessarily remember them having an extended conversation. That's very much saved for the next book.
It's Chilton and Freddie Lowndes' fate is different in this adaptation.
Okay. Spoiler alert. Freddie's different.
Yeah, if you were eagerly looking forward to what happens to Freddie, that does not happen to Freddie.
Nah.
Just to let you down, if you had very strong feelings about her character.
I mean, I'm imagining what outfit she would be wearing while being lit on fire, being thrown down a parking garage while on fire, and I'm sure it would be awesome.
Alas.
So when was the first time did you read Red Dragon first, or did you read Silence first?
I am pretty sure I read Red Dragon first. I think I feel like I might have seen the movie. I might have seen Manhunter. I might have caught it on cable before.
Yeah, I think I caught it on cable.
Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. And then I read the book, and then I went into Silence after that. But I think the only one of the books I've returned to more than once is probably Red Dragon.
Mm-hmm. And so would you say that's your premier version of, this universe in terms of its literary? I mean, the competition is 2 books.
Well, yes. Are you saying if I like it better than Silence?
Do you like it better than Silence?
I do, yeah. Now, as far as if you're going to ask me to pick one movie over the other, that's like asking which one's my favorite child. Right. I think that you can't. It's the same universe, but they're so different in style that you can't really. They're 2 entirely different movies, despite featuring a lot of the same characters and existing within the same world.
Sure.
Now, if you're talking like the remake of Manhunter called Red Dragon, we shan't mention that.
Oh boy. I was, I was like, maybe you could redo it and make it a little bit closer to the book, and that might be interesting. And you would have the same, Hannibal Lecter involved in it, and that might be interesting. And then I watched it. I'm like, nope, no. I don't think it would exist without the Michael Mann movie. It's trying so hard to be both Silence and Manhunter at the same time. It literally just doesn't have a life of its own.
It's basically a movie. It's one of those movies that sets out to quote unquote correct an error, which in this case would be, hey, there's not a Hannibal Lecter in this movie.
Right.
So, in addition to Will consulting him on this new case, we're going to have lengthy flashbacks about, how they met, this, bizarre relationship they kind of maintain. Now, granted, nothing on the level of the TV show, but
right. Yeah.
And then how Hannibal betrays him and attacks him and so on and so forth. Whereas I think the entire amount of screen time that Hannibal Lecter gets in Manhunter is about 6 minutes. But you know what? Like, you don't forget a single second of his appearance in that.
Makes an impression.
He absolutely does. And by the time I love Anthony Hopkins, but by the time Red Dragon rolled around, he's just straight up doing a parody of Hannibal Lecter at this point.
Yes. I mean, he's as much Hannibal Lecter as he is, Jason Voorhees. He's putting on a show. Like he's been on the road with Phantom of the Opera for so long. His Phantom doesn't have wants, needs, and emotions. It's just the lights are on. Now I sing this song. It's not his finest moment. I don't know that it's anybody's finest moment. And there's a whole host of fantastic fucking people in that movie.
Yeah, the movie should have worked. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yes. When they announced that cast, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be amazing.
I mean, honestly, Harvey Keitel is Jack Crawford, Philip Seymour Hoffman is Freddie Lowndes, Ray Fiennes is Francis Dolarhyde. I think Emily Watson is in there, and correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Mary Louise Parker like given the thankless Molly role?
She is, yeah. And Edward Norton is Will.
Well, he had it coming.
Are you saying he's the weakest link of in the cast?
I do. I think he's overcompensating his ability to come off like an everyman, and he's also not weird enough to be the weird man, and so he's just a little bit in between in terms of, I don't know. He just doesn't register as someone who walks among us for me. He's very much a movie. Like, he does better when he's playing weird villains or he's got a definitive take on a character. And there he's just kind of like, I don't know, can I stare into the middle distance? Is that enough? He just doesn't have a read on it.
Yeah, I think that you went in and like, well, I don't want to be William Peterson in Manhunter.
Yes.
And it's like, you could try being a little William Peterson in Manhunter. It's okay.
Yeah, you might want to try to conjure that magic a little bit because I just don't think there's a better William Peterson role. I mean, To Live and Die in LA is kind of up there, but Peterson is magnetic in Manhunter.
Oh yeah.
And then the thing that you can never replicate are like having Tom Noonan in there, and Brian Cox is his own just pure evil as Lecter. And then you got Dennis Farina walking around just classing up the fucking joint.
And a very small role with Chris Elliot, which I love.
Right, yeah.
Just him sitting there in like a boardroom.
Just one of the FBI team. You're like, is that the guy who lives underneath the seats on David Letterman? Okay.
Is that the fancy
lad? Yeah, and Joan Allen looking hot as hell.
boy, Michael Mann knows how to make a movie. And who would have known it?
Sexy tigers.
It's the sexiest. Just hearing their heartbeats getting you hot. It's a whole thing. But that brings us back around to now Hannibal taking on Red Dragon, which is, we've talked about this before. They're reinterpreting various elements, but to really dive into an adaptation of Red Dragon, I think is an interesting point in its, 3 seasons, that it feels confident enough that, okay, this dynamic that we've had where, we all know that Hannibal was a cannibal, but nobody else knew. And then half the cast knew, and then everybody knew, and then he escapes, and then now he's captured. This is changing very much the dynamic of the show and trying to keep the show Hannibal while also doing Red Dragon. That is quite a tightrope act.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a very about face that they take halfway through the season, which is an interesting choice.
True. And leaving yourself, what is it? This is episode 8 and it ends by 13. So you're not giving yourself a whole ton of time to sort of bring Red Dragon to the screen. But then again, you have more time than any film adaptation has ever had. So there's an advantage to that. And no one is restricting you on the amount of gore you can show, because at one point, Will walks into a room that just looks like someone went crazy with a hose, with a blood hose. So let's talk about our Red Dragon himself, this time played by Richard Armitage.
I got things to say.
This is the time to say them. I mean, let's talk about it.
To me, again, you're looking at two very the storylines are similar, but you look at two very different takes on the source material here. I don't necessarily find Tom Noonan to be unattractive, but he is a very physically imposing man. And I actually went to a screening of Manhunter some years ago, and he was there doing a Q&A at the end, and he is fucking enormous. He literally filled the doorway that he walked through. He's like about 6'40". Like he just very like his face in it is very like it's just off-putting because he's pretty much mostly expressionless. And at one point he wears a stocking over his face and it should look funny, but it looks terrifying because it's basically just distorting his features. In this version, they cast Richard Armitage, who is might be at this point now the best looking member of this entire cast, with the possible exception of Catherine Isabel. It's like they cast him and they were like, like someone's seen reading the book, like, oh wait, this guy's supposed to be ugly. And they're like, well, we start filming tomorrow. What do we do? It's like, how about that? Hear me out. We cut his hair really short, and we button his shirts all the way up to the collar. That'll do it. Let's go.
And he just acts weird.
And give him a little tiny scar on his upper lip that for some reason he just doesn't grow a mustache over. Okay, it's like, all right, great, I love it, perfect.
Yeah, Richard Armitage has the, he's done this a couple times. Like he's so attractive that in The Hobbit, and he's a dwarf. He's a sexy dwarf. He's a sexy dwarf. Like he's too attractive to really be a dwarf. And
And, uh, at one point, an elf falls in love with a different dwarf, and you're like, why? If they're in the same fucking room, you're telling me you're picking this one over Richard Armitage? Okay.
And now I will say that the Dolarhyde of the book is supposed to be really ripped. So that part they got right. But he is not an attractive man. He has some sort of malformation with his teeth. And he is basically in a job primarily because it keeps him isolated from his coworkers, either because he believes that they think he is so hideous that they can't actually look at him, or they actually think this. The impression that you get is people are afraid of him without even actually knowing that he's a serial killer, that they just kind of shrink away from him. And this guy he's just Patrick, he's too dreamy. He's too dreamy.
I agree with you. Absolutely. They're trying everything they can to figure out a way to, distract you from a classically cut jaw. It helps that he does not have a beard or mustache, which is something he has sported oftentimes. He does have a fabulous head of hair. So cutting it does take away a few of his weapons. And in this lunchroom, where we meet him in the sort of dreamy, front porch section of this episode, he's having a moment. He's having times unto himself. And have you ever had a coworker that you just knew you shouldn't have lunch with?
I have, yes.
It has been rare. I mean, I of course have been working from home now for not quite 2 decades, but we're getting close. So I very much enjoy the person I eat lunch with because I'm married to her. But there have been times where, have I told the Jesus Donut show?
You've not. I would remember that.
Okay. So back when I worked at Universal Studios Hollywood, there was a guy who had Elvis hair and wore Elvis sunglasses. And you're like, well, that's interesting. And then everyone would go, don't get into a conversation with that guy. He's a complete born again zealot. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting with the Elvis getup. Okay. All right. Listen, you don't have to ask me twice. I'm perfectly fine. But then when everyone caught wind of the fact that this guy, you didn't want to get caught in conversation with him, he would then try to get you into a conversation with you other ways. One of them was to bring a box of 24 donuts and write a Bible verse on the lid. So when you opened it up, you were confronted with Bible. And I think he underestimated my desire to eat donuts because I've read the Bible. You're not going to surprise me there. And it only takes me a little while to grab a cruller and get my ass to the other side of the room. I then learned that he was the kid on a CBS cop show.
What?
That had run for like 6 years or maybe even more than that. And, that experience had led him to becoming an Elvis impersonator, studio guide, Bible thumper.
Wait, what show is this? Are you allowed to say?
I'm going to hold back from now because I don't know what his situation is currently.
Well, okay.
But this was a 80s CBS cop show that played for a long time, and he played the cop's kid on that show. So he was a fucking weirdo, and none of us wanted to eat lunch with him, and that was his way around it, was to
talk about
fool us.
I was gonna say and talk about Jesus. So that's always a good conversation opener. Do you have a few minutes to talk about Jesus? No.
I feel like all my words about Jesus have been said, it's practically rote at this point. No one who wants to talk about Jesus ever wants to talk about what Jesus actually believed in. So why the fuck are we talking about him?
Do you know who would like to convert you to his religion? Francis Dolarhyde.
Oh, is he a big Jesus nut? I mean, we haven't really gotten my remembrance of Red Dragon, the book, and even the movies have kind of faded. Although Jesus wasn't a big thing. It's much more this Blake.
Well, no, I was going to say he's obsessed with this whole Red Dragon painting. That's his sort of religion.
Have you seen the Blake painting?
Not in person. No, that's at the Chicago Institute of Art.
It's quite possible. I know that I've seen it. I do remember seeing it and going, "Oh, that's the thing from the book."
I had a postcard of it once.
Sure. He has a lot of muscles that go in places that muscles shouldn't. that Red Dragon.
Yeah, he's got a back meant to have a giant back piece tattooed onto it.
Truly. He's got delts on his back. He's got biceps in places. There's all sorts of additional muscles.
He has biceps where he doesn't have arms.
Right. And an okay ass. I have the feeling that Red Dragon is skipping leg day. It just doesn't seem like he's working on his glutes that much. Or is that some sort of phantom effect from his tail? Who can say?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I wasn't looking too much at his legs, honestly. It is actually at the National Gallery of Art.
Okay. I know I've seen it at one point. That's all I can attest to. Now, Dolarhyde also, during this, he finds a Time magazine. It just has this red dragon on the front.
He's just like, ooh. He's like, what?
Entered the community meme of this better not awaken anything inside of me. And it turns out it absolutely does.
Did it ever?
I was like, holy Moses, this is exactly what I've been looking for. I've already been working out, but I'm going to try to get all those weird muscles on my body. Also, I might need a set of weirdo teeth. Would you know where to go to get weirdo teeth?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't know if the writers thought that, how he acquired those teeth in the book was just, a little bit too beyond the pale for the audience of this show, because there was a set of dentures that belonged to his grandmother.
Right.
And she raised him and was abusive towards him. But after she died, he kept the dentures and he would wear them when he would kill people. Like he was wearing those dentures when he would bite people, which is why he's called the Tooth Fairy. But here he just just custom make me these grotesque dentures. It's like, well, what do you need these for? I'm gonna be there for a movie role.
You know me, I collect weirdo teeth. There is that one connection where he looks at the paper clipped photo of him and his grandmother and he tosses it away. So they're kind of alluding to it without saying it, but yeah, he's getting a set where he can really bite on some people. That's his main goal here. I
do like his very quaint, like grandma scrapbook that looks like something from like 1890, and he's got like the pot of rubber cement. Like you can't just go to like Michael's or Joann's and get like the little a glue stick, or like the little adhesive little dots you can put on the back of it. He's like, no, he's slopping that rubber cement on.
No, he's got an art project thing going on. He needs industrial strength glop to put on there. And I know this montage is supposed to sort of represent many months of activity, but I'd love to think of it as 3 consecutive days where he's just more efficient at life than I am.
Just filling this bulging scrapbook.
Yeah. just
my
had
big,
more time in the day.
My big book of heinous murders.
Oh, I'd love to have a big book of heinous murder just to have around the house. I'm so bad at scrapbooking and keeping memories. If I didn't have my phone, I
was going to say,
maybe he's got that up on us.
Isn't that a cornerstone of the Mormon Church?
It is a bit of a cornerstone of the Mormon Church. Of course, my parents weren't great at reproducing cornerstones of the Mormon Church. They're very social Mormons. I think for a lot of it, all that shit requires effort.
I hear that.
And my family's not a high effort clan.
I hear that.
So yeah, we have our standard opening credits, and then we get the magical after Hannibal has been captured 3 years later.
Yeah, this is
Gotta love
our biggest time jump.
For sure. Yes, absolutely. In this show, it's without a doubt the biggest time jump we've ever had. And we meet Alana.
She's still around somehow.
She's still around.
because
she figured it out.
Because she and Dr. Chilton are the only psychiatrists in all of Baltimore County.
Right.
And even though they both have a probably it almost certainly boundary crossing personal connection with Hannibal Lecter, they're still also possibly treating him, which
it seems to be more Alana than Chilton. Chilton seems to be visiting, because when Alana walks into the office, she's like, "Get out of my chair," which used to be his. So I think he's no longer there, and he's making money off of writing books, and she has taken his job.
I just feel like they maybe should have sent him to a different hospital.
I would agree. But would any other hospital be able to give him the digs that he has, like white walls with molding,
and giving him access to prepare exotic desserts?
Yeah, he's cooking. They allow him to cook.
They gave him pencils.
Yeah.
Guy murdered 27 people.
They're like, well, should we give him a sharpener? No, we'll sharpen up the pencils before they go in there. And I'm sure everything will work out great. Yeah. And he's just sketching while he talks to Alana.
Yeah, like I said, it's important to point out once again that this show does not exist in any pretense of the real world.
We do not come to Hannibal for real life.
It just does not.
No, it is not. If you're looking for that, this isn't where you're going to get it. I was happy that after all the adaptations of Red Dragon, we finally got to see someone who is looking at themselves under the moon covered in blood and how it, quote, appears quite black.
Yes. I will say, as much as I was a little dubious at a male model being cast to play Francis Dolarhyde, I do think he does a great job. It's nothing against his, I don't have any problem with him as an actor. And I do, and I appreciate that he's not trying to do Tom Noonan. I like this, what I described in the group chat, this sort of interpretive dance nightmare Dolarhyde. I like that. I like that take on it. I think there is plenty of room for different interpretations of all these characters.
Sure. Yeah. And I think we get very different interpretations of almost all these characters. So why not Dolarhyde? And speaking of which, there's a moment here where Chilton is trying to kind of, and this is very much from the book and every interpretation, where someone goads Hannibal about, you're no longer cool. The new hotness is the, quote, tooth fairy. And that's supposed to irk him in some way. But the thing is, Hannibal isn't really stung by not being the center of everyone's attention. There are certain people he would like their attention more than they give to anyone else, namely Will. but he's not like, I have to be the belle of the ball at all times. That's not really this version of Hannibal's thing. And yet Chilton, who has been wrong so often that if he was ever right, it was definitely by accident and probably turned the wrong way, is like, maybe I'm going to write a book about him because you suck now.
I love when he's all
made
like,
you chocolate pudding in an orange.
I know, man. That looked fucking amazing. Have you ever had anything?
Have
you ever anything like that?
I have never had that concoction that is supposedly made with blood and chocolate. But I do love chocolate and orange as a mixture of flavors. Becky hates it.
You ever get that little chocolate orange thing on Christmas Day? Num, num, num.
Yeah. C's Candy used to make this thing that was like a quarter-sized disc of orange candy, and then they would dip half of it in chocolate. And oh my God, it was so fucking good. But apparently I was the only one on earth who liked it because they got rid of that shit about 2 decades ago.
I do like this conversation between, well, you can't really call it a conversation. It's where Chilton's kind of talking at him, which he usually does. That's kind of how Chilton holds a conversation.
Yeah, he's trying to stay on the same plane as Hannibal, which is a fucking fool's errand, but he is a fool.
Right. He just talks to people and they barely tolerate his presence. I mean, I get it. We've all been in conversations like that.
Yes.
But he's like, oh, well, you were too fancy and fussy. What the people really like is people who murder entire families.
That's great.
Do they, Freddie? Not Freddie. What is his first name again? It is Frederick.
Oh,
is it?
Yeah,
isn't he a Frederick too? All right, so we have 2 Freddys on this show. Okay,
we do have 2 Freddys. I guess so, right?
It's like you sure about that, Doc? That the people love child murderers. It's like, I mean, are we talking like popularity scales here?
He refers to him as a 4-quadrant killer, which I found very funny. But then we catch up with Will, and instead of going down south to the Keys, he's in a wolf ear trap. It's snowbound. It looks like The Shining is happening in the background.
Yeah, the most shocking reveal about this whole sequence is that Will somehow now has a girlfriend.
Yes.
To which I say, William Matthew Graham, you are not ready for a long-term relationship. Particularly,
and there's a child involved.
Particularly with anyone who has a child. Like, what sort of turbocharged therapy has he been going through in the past 3 years that he's like, well, you know what? I don't really think about that much anymore. It's like, you don't?
Yeah. It's a speed run therapy session that he went through in order to nab Molly here, who does have his last name, so they might be fully married.
That's okay.
I'm just looking at her character name is Molly Graham. So now in the books, they were married way back when. So it's not like it's a newer thing. They just like made him a free and fancy bachelor on the show.
Right.
And here, this kid is not his kid. In fact, in the book, I think they have a couple kids, more than just one.
No, it's the one kid. I think that it is not his child, but that he's been in the child's life for quite a while, like longer than he is here.
Yeah. It was really nice to see Scott Thompson back.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh my God. Just when he walks into a scene, it's just fucking magnetic. Do you have someone semi-competent who can help me?
Oh yeah, my favorite line is his partner talking about taking dental impressions from the victims, and he's like, "Well, we got one from Mrs. Jacob or Mrs. Leeds, I think was he's like, and this cheddar cheese wheel thing in the refrigerator," and I'm like, "I beg your pardon, that is a baby bell. Thank you very much."
it's entirely possible that Baby Bell did not want to be associated with this 4-quadrant serial killer.
You know what? All I can say is that if a serial killer were to sneak into my house and annihilate me and my entire family and wanted to look at my refrigerator for a little snack, they would find Baby Bells in there.
Yeah, there you go. I think we might have some too. Although, Becky being from Wisconsin is a little bit pickier about cheese, but also my son has he doesn't like cheese that's melted. He can handle cheese that's unto itself, but once it hits a melting point and it's not on a pizza, and even then it has to be very light on the melted cheese. It's very weird.
That is weird.
I guess it's a texture thing.
Probably.
Yeah. It's not right, and I don't like it, and I'm going to try to beat it out of him. Obviously, not physically, but mentally and emotionally.
I mean, you could try. You could try physically if nothing else works.
I guess, but I just don't think it'll work. Molly has this great line when Will says, "If I go, I'll be different when I get back," and she goes, "I won't." I'm like, "Oh, damn. Damn, that's a good woman."
Yeah. But let's also talk about one Mr. Jack Crawford, who's like,
sure,
I'm still on the job, apparently.
Won it back.
Still in charge. Been investigating another horrific serial killer case. And I'm gonna bring back my one guy to help me investigate, who the last I saw him was so beyond psychologically damaged that he could barely speak. But yes. I heard he's doing all right. So I heard he had. Yeah, I heard he didn't die. So we'll see if we can bring him back on the case. Just get the band back together one more time.
Yeah, he only got sawed in the head a little bit. Anyone can bounce back from that.
And gutted, and shot, and got his face carved into. Looks great, by the way.
Oh, hardly a scar, if at all. Like whoever his surgeon is, chef's kiss, because that Punim looks fantastic. But no, just coax him right back into it. And so he runs off to the lead's house, got himself a couple pictures, makes his way in there, which is, again, looks like someone had a red cherry Jello pudding party, and has a bit of performance anxiety before he finally gets the walk back in time.
I do actually like this scene because he looks scared, but it's unclear if he is scared because it's not happening or because he doesn't want it to happen.
Yes. I think it's a little bit of both. And then that shot of after he goes through the entire fantasy sequence and he understands what our killer's design is, and you come back to reality and the red strings that indicate blood splatter become his wings. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's a beautiful shot. I love it.
And so, I mean, if we're playing choose your own death venture here, you're either going to get shot or stabbed and then have mirrors put in your face. So, do you have a preference?
I mean, that one kid was asleep when he got shot. So, I'll take that.
I'll take nappy time. I don't want to stumble throughout the house worrying about my children while my blood is spurting out of my neck.
No.
I did not care for that.
No. That did not look enjoyable in the slightest.
No, that's a big no thanks for me. But that pretty much does it. Josh Hollis does our artwork. Revenge Body does all of our music here on the show. Go to revengebodymemphis@bandcamp.com for all of his remixes and our main themes. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television at thespool.net. I do a little side project with Joe Lipsett and Jed Adams called White Ladies in Crisis. We just wrapped up season 2 of Apple TV's Physical, and we will shortly be getting into the Hulu miniseries Candy. And you can find me on Twitter under Gina Does Things.
Do it today. People, check it out. Of course, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, our Patreon, where we're doing cool shit. We have a fun listener request this month. We're talking Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. Truly the greatest comedy film of the pandemic. I'm going to put my bill down on that bet, and it's a sure thing. And of course, we're still continuing to talk about various Halloween movies. But that just about does it for now. Don't worry, folks. The body count will continue for myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.